Welcome to Myth or Reality Stories. Is this story a myth and untrue, or a reality and totally true? You decide.
Have you ever experienced something so terrifying it felt unreal? Something that took your breath away, leaving you paralyzed with fear, unsure of what was real and what was not. Many people have felt that chilling fear, especially in places where life and death often hang in the balance, like hospitals. There's an unsettling aura about hospitals. They hold the stories of hope and healing, but also of despair and endings. It's a realm dominated by sterile walls, the incessant beeping of machines, and hushed whispers shadowed by a sense of unease. Let me share with you a true hospital horror story, one that lingers in the silent corners of my mind, evoking memories of unsettling encounters that still send shivers down my spine. It began one stormy night when I was a nursing intern at a small, understaffed hospital. The rain lashed against the windows, its rhythm a ghostly reminder of the night's ominous tone. I had just completed my rounds when I felt an unusual chill permeate the air, a stark contrast to the warm glow of the overhead lights. The hospital was unusually quiet that night, far too quiet for comfort. The only sound was the occasional rustle of nurses' scrubs and the distant murmur of patients in their rooms. As I walked down the long corridor towards the supply room, I noticed a figure at the end of the hallway. A male nurse, his back turned to me, was speaking softly to a patient in room 204. The patient, a frail old woman, had recently been admitted for pneumonia. As I approached, the male nurse turned, revealing a face that seemed hollow, almost translucent. His eyes were sunken, and his skin had an unnatural pallor. I chalked it up to fatigue. After all, we were all overworked, but there was something unsettling about his presence. I continued my walk, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The air grew colder, and the lights flickered momentarily. I pushed the unease aside, focusing on my tasks. However, the moment I entered the supply room, the atmosphere shifted. The room felt cramped, as if the walls were closing in. I could hear whispers, soft, urgent whispers that seemed to echo from the farthest corners of the room. I shook my head, reminding myself that it was just my imagination running wild. After gathering the supplies, I stepped out into the corridor again, only to find the male nurse standing at the doorway of room 204, his expression blank, eyes fixated on the old woman who now appeared to be convulsing. I rushed towards them, but as I approached, the nurse suddenly turned and walked away, disappearing down the hallway. I looked back at the patient, and my heart sank as I saw that she was no longer moving. Panic set in as I rushed into the room, checking her pulse. Nothing, she was gone. I called for help, my voice trembling. Within moments, the room filled with frantic staff, and I was pushed aside. Confusion and terror washed over me as I tried to process what had just happened. Just moments before, she had been alive, and now she lay lifeless, her eyes wide open, staring into nothingness. But my nightmare was far from over. As the chaos settled and the staff attended to the unfortunate woman, I caught sight of the male nurse again, standing at the far end of the corridor, his gaze fixed on me. He raised a hand, beckoning me to come closer. Against my better judgment, I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my chest. As I approached, a chill ran down my spine. His lips curled into a smile that sent waves of dread through my body. "Come with me," he whispered, his voice low and haunting. "There's something you need to see." Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the hospital. I hesitated, but an inexplicable force compelled me to follow. I turned a corner, my mind racing with questions and fears. What was happening? Why was I doing this? He led me to the hospital's basement. The air grew heavy, reeking of mildew and decay. The fluorescent lights flickered ominously overhead, casting eerie shadows along the walls. The atmosphere was stifling, wrapping around me like a shroud. I felt a sense of foreboding, but I pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity and the need to confront whatever lay ahead. We stopped in front of a door that looked ancient, far older than the rest of the hospital. The nurse turned to me, his expression inscrutable. This place holds secrets. Secrets you need to know. As he pushed the door open, a wave of cold air rushed out, enveloping me. Inside was a room filled with faded photographs, grotesque medical equipment, and bodies. Disfigured, lifeless remains of those who had been forgotten by the world, draped in white sheets. I recoiled, horror flooding my senses. With a sickening realization, I understood that the nurse was not just a man. He was a specter of the hospital's past, one of the many souls lost in the corridors, forever doomed to wander. The stories of neglect, of pain, and of death echoed around me, and I knew I had stumbled upon something dark, something that should have remained buried. Suddenly, the room started to spin. The nurse's smile grew wider, his form flickering like a dying bulb. "You will join us," he whispered, the sound echoing in my mind. In a blind panic, I turned and ran, my heart racing as I fled back into the hallway. I could feel the chill of his presence chasing me, the whispers growing louder, taunting me. I burst through the doors leading back to the main area, gasping for breath, the weight of the horrors pressing down on me. I never returned to that hospital after that night. The experience haunted me, a chilling reminder of what I had witnessed. Many days passed, and I learned that room 204 was sealed off days after the incident. The old woman was pronounced dead not long after I had left her. They say some hospitals hold on to their secrets, whispering them to the wind, and sometimes they release them to those who are foolish enough to seek the truth. The question remains, what truly lurks behind the walls of a hospital, waiting patiently for the next curious soul? If you have your own hospital horror stories, I urge you to share them in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more spine-chilling content. You never know what secrets might be waiting for you in the shadows.
This story is a myth and totally made up by us. Please subscribe, or else.